get started here, I have a little video to watch. We're going to be discussing today ground tether. And if you are very new to this, if you are a first-time weight raiser, what this is going to show you is I'm going to go through this video. Hopefully everything will work the way it's designed. I can't guarantee with technology, but I'm going to share my screen with you, and I'm going to show you a video that I made this morning of how to do a ground tether. So one of the basics that we want to talk about is impulse control. Impulse control is highly important to our guide dog training, as we want our puppies to make decisions and to see something, to see a distraction to them and say, nope, I'm not going to lunge towards that distraction. I can look, but I don't need to lunge, grab, jump, any of those behaviors that are undesirable to us. So that's how the ground tether is designed. So we're going to have our puppies and we're going to actually stand on our leash. It's something very common that we often do in our training sessions that we teach on our weekend trainings. And because we can't have those, we thought this was one of the best ways that we can show it. So you want to have your puppy in a controlled environment. A lot of people said yesterday or last week when we did our session that they were hoping for some real world practical designs for what we're doing. If you don't practice it, puppies get the best. They get really, really good at what they practice. So we want them to be practicing things at home, and this is perfect. This time that we're home is perfect to practice things that they are at home and able to do in a more controlled environment, so that when they get into a situation where there is something that is difficult, that we are actually able to have some idea of what we're supposed to do. So let me see if this works. I'm going to go ahead and share my video. I can also stop and pause and talk and discuss kind of what's going on. I have my puppy. He's a 7-month-old male yellow lab, and he is going to get extremely excited about seeing another dog. I had a difficult time. I'm super proud of him because I did some videos yesterday and I couldn't get the response that I needed. I couldn't get him to jump and lunge at things, and so that I could show you what to do. I had to come up with something. What is he really distracted by? Your puppies could be really distracted by leaves right now, blowing things in the wind. It's really windy out here in Michigan. They could be distracted by other dogs. They could be distracted by food on the floor. We actually tried a food bowl yesterday because I thought he would get excited about that, but he didn't. So let me see if this sharing my screen will actually work.
Oh boy.
So please just be patient for a minute. And I'm hoping this is working. I'm going to pause my video here. I'm going to put it on full screen. VJ, if you can see this, can you just let me know?
I see it, Laura.
Okay, great. So in the very beginning of this, and I'm glad you all can see it. There's me. There's my puppy. I have his leash shortened up, so I'm going to show you that I do have a treat pouch on my right hip over here. Puppy is on my left. I'm unclipping my leash and making it long, and you can see that he already notices the distraction. I had to do a little bit of a hand tether there and reinforced him for his leash getting loose again. Just to put this on pause, the only thing that I want my puppy to do after I lengthen the leash and I stand on it The only thing that I expect of him is that that little bit of leash, there's about 12 inches there, maybe a little bit more, that the leash is loose. And every time that leash gets loose, I am going to mark with the word yes, and I'm going to deliver a reinforcement to my left knee. Let's see if that actually happens. You can see he's already really excited. What I did was I had, like I said, I had to find something that was really exciting for him. And in this case, it's his best friend, Michael, the poodle. And the two of them play quite a bit. So this was one of the things I knew would get him a little bit excited. And you can see that he does. My hands are at home. It got loose there for a second, and I reinforce him at my left knee because I want to keep him in that position. The distraction is actually entering the picture. And I'm being very proactive in treating him ahead of time before it actually gets there. He's looking at it, but he's not lunging. Oops. There it goes. And he does lunge. You can see the poodle is also lunging, so he lacks some impulse control. Every time it gets loose, I'm marking with yes. And delivering a reinforcement to him.
He's laying in her little spot.
He's actually not doing too badly. The poodle, too, he's trying to do some things to elicit some reinforcement. He's not getting any. And then my distraction goes away. And I wanted to really show also that what I'm doing in this video to set this up so that my puppy can be successful, he's not rushing up towards me. And that is something that actually might happen in the real world, is that someone might rush up to you with a dog. And how do you stop this? One of the things about the ground tether, yes, we set this up, but in the beginning you saw that I did use a hand tether, which means I just had my hand, we'll go back, I'll show that part of the video again, but I just had my hand kind of almost on my leg, on my pocket, preventing him from going forward. There's a little bit more to the video where he's approaching again, and you see my puppy notices the distraction, and I'm treating him on my left side. I wish he wouldn't have gotten that close that time, but you know, when you're working with volunteers, sometimes they don't always do their jobs correctly. I had to work with what I had.
Oh, come on, Laura.
I know. They're my freebie kids, and so again, we're doing the same thing. This time I told them not to come as close. But you can see how just that extra reinforcement there really helped. And there, we're stopping that one. I do have another video to show, though, of how we arrived at the end result with another dog. We tried this again. But I want to open it up and have you guys ask some questions. Does anybody have an immediate question? You can unmute yourselves. And VJ, are there any in the chat box?
Not yet. No, none in the chat box yet. Laura?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I didn't know if you could hear me or not.
Yep.
Laura, for the dog who does not want to, you have a dog coming at you, and for the dog who does not want to pay attention to you, because that dog is much more important than you are.
That's a great question.
What about doing a U-turn at that point?
You absolutely could. So I knew at this point when we were doing the exercise with my puppy, I wanted to show you one that was going to kind of lunge and what that picture is going to look like. If it was me and I was in the real world situation, I would have turned around and hightailed it much farther away. And I think that anytime you want to create, anytime there's a distraction, you want to make sure that you're creating an adequate distance for your puppy to still be engaged with you. And I noticed right away in this video, if I was really setting it up even in a better way, that that dog would have not even been in the picture until I was completely ready, which means my puppy was engaged with me and already looking at me. We started the video with him already leaping. I could almost not even undo my leash because he was getting so excited about seeing his friend. So in those instances, yes, that is absolutely something that you could do, is turn around and go the other direction.
And at that point, what is the point at which you would mark? Do you mark as soon as the dog turns with you? Do you mark when the dog sees the dog? At what point does that mark come?
When I am working on training this behavior, I want to mark at the point, again, it depends on what your criteria is. If I just want my puppy to have a loose leash, as soon as his leash is loose, even if I'm going in a different direction, I'm going to mark the loose leash.
Okay.
So if you want to mark looking at, I always mark when I'm doing this and they're coming that straight on, that distraction being straight to me. I did mark every time that he looked but didn't react, that and his leash was loose. So I waited for him to look at it a little bit. He is quite a bit older than an 8-week-old puppy. So, you know, his leash mostly was loose there. It's hard to see in the video, but he mostly had a loose leash for most of the time that he was there. But he was definitely looking at the distraction. So I marked him for looking, but not necessarily. But his leash was always loose there as well.
But in the case of a dog who is very attracted to other dogs, wouldn't want to pay any attention to you, and starts pulling towards the other dog, or hard stare and has tension on the leash, and you would do that U-turn to walk away to give distance, then the point, your criteria then would be to give the attention to you to walk with you with loose leash. So the point of marking then would be when they turn to come with you, their turn to come with you would be the mark then.
Yeah, because the leash would get loose. As soon as they turned with you, then that leash would get loose again. Like I said, if we kept our criteria the same as that loose leash,
right,
as soon as it was achieved, if you were turning, I would mark.
right, okay.
So Laura, we have a really good question from Dana Blake and Suzanne Ramos. Dana's asking, how early can you begin working on a ground tether? Her puppy is only 8 weeks. Suzanne started asking also about older dogs. Can you talk about the alternative for older, stronger dogs?
Sure. Dana, you can start working on the ground tether at any time because they, I'm going to show you this, like I said earlier. I've got another video to show you also, but I started this basically as soon as I brought my puppy home. As soon as I noticed that he could be distracted by something, I started using the ground tether to train him to look at distractions, but then also remember his impulse control. So this can be started ASAP as soon as you bring them home. And you're going to notice that your baby puppies, they are going to be distracted by things, even a spot on the floor that looks different, or it could be, and you don't have to do this with a partner, by the way. This can be something that you can do by yourself. If it is a puppy who maybe you put a biscuit on the floor or a piece of food, you could definitely do this impulse control exercise with them, as long as you know they're not going to be able to get to that piece of food. I've done it with a food bowl. I've done it with maybe a sock or something like that your puppy you don't want them to get. So that's when you can use this by yourself. My puppy is already in this video. He is already over 50 pounds. And at that point, I tend to use a hand tether a little bit more than I'm going to actually go back to sharing my screen. I'm going to hopefully get back to, I'll show you in the very beginning. I'll kind of circle it for you what that hand tether looks like. So let me see if I can get my screen up here again. Sorry about that. I'm trying to get my screen up and it's, oh, there we go. I'm gonna back this one up.
Leave it, leave it.
I'm gonna back this one up to the very beginning. You see this right here? He pulled away and I was unclipping the leash.
Wait, I have to pee.
And see how I held it right there? Did everybody see that? Were you able to see how just that piece where I just had the leash and I just held it tight? My arm didn't go far out. I wasn't reaching. He wasn't able to pull towards that. And as soon as he felt that pressure, I'll back it up again and let you watch it again. As soon as he felt that pressure, see how his head came back and he loosened the leash up right there so that I could unclip it. So
Laura,
he did
can
feel.
you make your screen larger?
Yep. We'll do it again here. I'm unclipping it. He sees the distraction, and there's my hand. See, it didn't go too far out. He did feel that pressure that came onto him. I reinforced him for making it looser, though, and I was able to start this game, this fun game. He sees the distraction. He sees it coming. It gets loose. I marked and reinforced him so that it would stay loose. He looked and didn't react. Again, I marked him again for looking and not reacting. You can see his little tail going here. He's really, really excited about this other dog. And when he hopped back, it got loose and I marked and I needed to reinforce that behavior. So I did. I let him make a decision. Wasn't a very good one. I should have marked there. I didn't.
Okay.
But notice I did two really fast ones in a row there. I wanted to keep him in that position, so I did a couple of really fast ones. I really wish that this person was reinforcing their dog more, but they're not, so. And here comes the dog, a little faster than what I would like, but we're still able to get some reinforcement in there. I'd like to show you the next video, if I can get this one. There we go. Sorry guys, this is a little, here's my ground tether too. I'm gonna make it big here for you to watch. I put him on the ground tether again. Go back to the beginning. Got my bait bag on. I'm unclipping my leash. This is a friend who's less exciting. He's a less exciting friend. But you can see how the ground tethering works and the exercise works. And hopefully you're still able to hear me. I'm going to
stop that part.
Can everyone please make sure that their mute button is on? We're getting a lot of feedback.
All right, was everybody able to see that? And do you have any other questions?
Yeah, we saw you okay, Laura. There was some really good questions on the chat, but I'm going to reiterate what Bev said. If you have your microphones on, could you please mute? We're getting some noise from somewhere.
Melissa asked a great question. She said, what are you unclipping your leash from? And the answer to that one is I was unclipping my leash and making it long. You can make your leader dog leash, you can make it short and you can make it long. So I had it clipped in the beginning to where it was shorter, the 4 foot length, I believe it is. I unclipped it so I could use the full leash for that particular activity.
Laura, there's a question also about if your dog is too strong, what else can you recommend?
So I would start by doing this again, doing this activity where you're going to be successful, especially if your puppy or your dog is bigger. You want to begin much further away than what I did. I knew what my puppy could handle and I knew likely what was going to happen. And anytime you do this and being proactive and getting the response, you want to be successful. You want to do these activities to be successful so that you can begin to reinforce the behavior that you want. If I knew that my dog was strong and was likely to pull even harder, I may have had that distraction way off. You saw he was already pretty far away, and I was eliciting a response from my dog that like I said, I knew ahead of time I was going to get for purposes of this exercise. Go farther away. Be farther away until you can be successful and build a relationship with your dog and be able to build that history of reinforcement.
Okay, and we have a question from Phyllis. She said that if your dog is surprised by the sudden appearance of another dog and immediately reacts, besides decreasing the distance to de-escalate the situation, would it be appropriate to use transport?
Yes, that is a great question. And just in case you couldn't hear VJ, Phyllis's question was, could you use transport to go away? Absolutely. If you need to turn around and use transport and something a little bit higher value to get away from the situation without your dog pulling, absolutely. In that case, yes, you can use transport. That's a great question. Are there any other questions that we can answer in the chat, or you can unmute your microphone and ask the question?
Laura, this is Kathy. I often will say leave it. Am I wrong to say leave it?
So Kathy's question, if you can't hear Kathy, her question was, can you use the word leave it? So while you could, it would be my preference to wait for your puppy's response if you're practicing the exercise. So if you just happen upon something, I use leave it when it's really super duper important, but otherwise, what I'm marking and the presence of that distraction becomes the cue for them to make a loose leash. So rather than saying the word, it's the environment that becomes that distraction in the environment that becomes the cue. So I tend to use leave it very little, if at all. Leave it as something when I'm in dire need of an emergency and it sounds different and it sounds a little different to my puppy. That would be if I encountered a dead squirrel in the road and my puppy was going at it and I really needed to get their attention, I might use the word leave it. But other than that, I typically don't use the word leave it very often, if that makes sense. Rather, seeing it or seeing another dog would be their cue to loosen up that leash and look to me for some additional instructions. Any other questions? That was a good one, Kathy. How many of you on here are first-time raisers who just picked up puppies, maybe? I'm sure there are some.
Laura, we have one other question from Bill Wise. He said, please clarify when to use the marker word, when not to. My understanding from my reading of the manual was that the marker word was for commanded behaviors and that rewards without the marker are offered for shaping behaviors.
That's a really great question. In this case, for this exercise, we're actually going to have another one of these on Thursday with VJ, and she's going to talk about the marker words and using the marker words and understanding that piece of it. In this exercise, I marked for loose leash. That is the behavior I was looking for. So every time the leash got loose, I marked with a yes, and then delivered a reinforcement every single time that leash got loose. Of course, there were times in the video where it got loose and I didn't mark, because when you're doing this exercise and you're watching and you're observing, you're bound to miss some of them, or there's opportunities where you miss if you watch a video. It's always really good to videotape yourself in these types of situations to look. But that is when I use that marker word. I want to tell my puppy that they've done the thing that I want them to do. So that loose leash is what I was marking. When I marked, the dog also looked at me and then received that reinforcement. So that word yes, he went, oh yeah, my food's coming. I'm going to wait for it. So again, VJ is going to do more on this on Thursday on actually marking, but for purposes of the ground tether, the criteria that I set was to mark when the leash was loose. So that's what I did. But that was a very good question, Bill. Thank you.
I have another question, Laura, from Nancy. And
Yes.
she's asking, would you please discuss how the ground tether can be used to work on many different situations or many different distraction situations? For example, counter surfing, I've recommended having puppy far enough away from the counter that they can't reach it and do the ground tether exercise, or just other things that puppy is distracted by.
Yep, you can use it for anything. In fact, a lot of being outside in your yard right now and being out is distracting in itself. There are more, and in fact, in this situation, the person that was doing the video was a distraction. The dog coming towards him was a distraction, and that person was an additional distraction. So there are multiple distractions. And as long as you're basing your criteria, that loose leash, and when that leash is loose, as long as you are using that as when you want to mark that behavior, you could use it in lots of different ways. I did one yesterday, and it was, if you look on our Facebook page, the video I posted yesterday was of my son jumping around, doing some kinds of crazy things. That was distracting. But you can definitely use it for multiple things. And in terms of impulse control, I had to use it with other dogs because I knew that's where I needed the work. And you can see that's where my puppy needs the work. He doesn't need work doing it with Labradors, evidently, but he needs lots of work doing it with dogs that look different from him. So I had to figure out what distraction was going to work for the purposes of practicing. But you could use it for anything. I know a big distraction for our puppies can be food and food on the ground. You can definitely use it in that way as well. That's still impulse control.
Laura Phyllis had a comment. She said, would you be offering this version of training format for first-time puppy raiser orientation during the COVID-19 when they can't be held on campus? And she loves this option.
Yay. Well, that is a great suggestion. I am definitely open to that. Since we just started using it, we haven't really figured out all the different ways we can. Sharing of the screen was totally different for me today, so hopefully that worked for you to see some things. And like I said, I don't know how we're going to be able to use this format. If it's going to work properly, it's, you know, everybody jumps on, and sometimes you can hear and sometimes you can't, but hopefully this will be something that we can do. I like Beverly has a question about the hierarchy of using stationary distractions and moving distractions. So when you're just starting this, there are a couple of different ways that you're going to be able to use the ground tether. And I think that using something non-moving at first would be the way that I would start. I would start by using things that are not moving. Maybe it's just a toy on the ground or a leaf on the ground or something that is just there. Because once you can do it with things that are not moving, and it is a lot harder to do it with things that are moving. It's also would have been very easy for my puppy to do this exercise if the dog was just standing there. I added a huge amount of distraction that the dog was coming towards him. And of course, what you want to do, and you want to make sure that you're doing, is you're wanting to move up as you get good at what you're doing. And by that, I mean, so now you can be near the tennis ball and not move. And so the presence of just a tennis ball. But as soon as you pick up the tennis ball and start bouncing it, that's a different kind of distraction. So you're going to start out very small. You're going to start out using this ground tether with something that's not moving, something that's stationary. And then you're going to move up to now that object is moving. And maybe now you're moving and the object is moving. So you're going to build on this as you get very, very good at it. And you will notice that your puppy will get good at it probably pretty quickly. They'll get good at things that are moving on the ground. But in that case, I would just stop. You got great at something on the ground? Perfect. You've done this for 2 to 3 minutes? Excellent. Stop. Then go put your puppy away, do something different, or have something different. And that is a lot of how I will do this with my puppy, is that we did it yesterday, but we did a whole bunch of videos in a series, and he started to not get very good at it. He started to get worse as we were going because I was trying to, again, elicit that response from him. So what I had to do instead was I said, okay, well, we're going to do it till you're really, really good. And he was doing really great at the distractions. And I just said, okay, we've got to stop. We'll go again tomorrow and make some more videos. But I didn't want to go too far to where I was practicing mistakes. I wanted to still remain successful. So we've got a question here about some leaves. He said his dog loves to eat every acorn, stick, or leaf and lunges outside to eat them. Should we bring these objects inside to practice tethering? You absolutely could. You don't have to bring them inside. You could still do it outside, but that's a great idea. Inside where everything's quiet and those objects are kind of not moving or blowing in the wind, that would be a great way to practice that. So yes, you could. Any other questions? VJ, your time on Thursday, if you're interested in joining us again and seeing some more things, VJ is going to be doing markers and how to use the marker word. VJ, what time is that again on Thursday so I don't get it wrong?
Oh, sure. It's going to be at 5 o'clock, everyone. I hope you can make it.
And this is also going to be recorded. You can watch it on our Facebook page, on our YouTube channel. And hopefully you learned something new. Thanks for joining me today, and have a great week, everybody.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.